So how on earth did port from Portugal end up being matured in Newfoundland? Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon. When I first saw bottle 110, Newman's celebrated port, in Reveal 22, I was completely befuddled. It is a legit port, meaning that it comes from Portugal, but it was matured in Newfoundland, which is in Canada. And I had no idea that that was a thing that one could do. It isn't something that you can do anymore, but once upon a time you could. Articles from 1900 claim that Newman's port, matured in Newfoundland, was one of the best ports in the world. So how on earth did port from Portugal end up being matured in Newfoundland? The romantic version of the story dates very specifically to 1679, when a Portuguese ship destined for London slipped its moorings, floated out to sea, and ran into some French privateers. Between trying to escape the pirates and dodge Atlantic storms, the ship made its way to St. John's, Newfoundland, where it spent the winter. The port was stashed away in some hillside caves, and when the cargo was finally delivered to London the following spring, it was extra delicious. So the practice continued. While the specificity of the date and the slipped moorings are almost certainly made up, the heart of the story appears to be substantially true. The Portuguese are well known for their love of cod, and the coasts of Newfoundland are famous for their cod fisheries. There has been ample trade between the two places for centuries, and that would have included port. And at some point, the port makers discovered that the port was improved by spending months to years in the cool maritime climate of Newfoundland and started doing it intentionally. The newspaper article from 1900 claims that multiple port producers at the time used this practice, but that Newman's was the largest and most renowned. By the late 1700s or early 1800s, Robert Newman and Company had built a pair of vaulted wine cellars in St. John's. The vaults are red brick with a mortar made out of seashells, and in the more than 200 years since their construction, they have been surrounded by a series of protective outer enclosures. The last such building was constructed between 1905 and 1907 and still stands today as a tourist attraction. It's no longer used to age Newman's port, though. The story gets a bit foggy, but it appears the Newman Company used the vaults only until 1914 or so. After that, port seems to have still been aged there, but it's unclear exactly by whom. But wine shipments are documented to have continued to cross the Atlantic through both world wars. 1966 was apparently the last year when port was aged in the Newman's vaults, but it continued to be aged in Newfoundland, including, by 1973, at a warehouse run by the Newfoundland Liquor Corporation, the provincial liquor authority. Newfoundland Liquor Corporation is the name that's on my tiny bottle. They continued to mature Newman's port in Newfoundland until the mid-1980s. After that, they shipped barrels of mature port to Newfoundland just for bottling. An article in 1992 said they like to shore age those barrels for 6 months, which would presumably have been enough to keep the matured in Newfoundland labeling. But that all ended in 1997 when the Portuguese government banned the shipment of bulk port and required all bottling to be done in Portugal. Newman's port is still sold in Canada and still features a map of Newfoundland on the label, but now it's aged and bottled in Portugal. My bottle says matured in Newfoundland, so that would imply that it's pre-1997. Newfoundland is one of the maritime provinces in the far east of Canada, and while it's possible someone picked up the bottle for Grandma while they're traveling, Newman's did also make its way west and would show up in Ontario from time to time. I found a 1990 newspaper article from British Columbia that specifically mentions the existence of a 50 ml taster bottle. So 1990 would be my guess on this one, since every mini bottle example I've seen looks identical to mine. It is sadly a plastic taster bottle, and an opaque one, so while I can't see inside, I can tell there's been a lot of evaporation. I suspect if I could see inside it, it would be as strangely clear in color as the only other bottle of port I've found in Grandma's collection, Bottle 61, Taylor Flaggate LBV. Given the evaporation, I'm not looking forward to tasting this one, but I'll definitely find an excuse to open it so I can find out what's inside. I know you want to find out too, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you've got any experience with Newman's port, I'd love to hear all about it. Leave me a comment below or at mytinybottles.com. Or find me on social media at TammyLC on Blue Sky and at MyTinyBottles on Instagram and Facebook. Cheers!